The Geekorama podcast is brought to you by superherofiction.com, the one-stop shop for novels featuring the superpowered heroes we all love. Your hosts are
Trish Heinrich, author of the Vigilante Superhero Universe.
And I'm Jeremy Flagg, author of the Children of Notre Dame universe.
So, hey, Jeremy.
Hi, Trish.
Awkward beginning.
I'm just going to do it every time.
Every time.
I think eventually I'm going to take all the awkward beginnings and just splice them together in a compilation of awkward.
I think that's a great idea. I think everybody would love that.
I think that that's the easy way to make us blush.
It is, definitely. What has your week been like? What have you been up to?
Okay, so the romance is actually working out really kind of well.
Good.
Sitting in the hot tub with some of my friends, yeah, that's just what we do.
Inspiration struck.
So I couldn't figure out, one of my heroes, his ability is he's blind, but he can see magnetic fields, which is just this super beautiful, very visual thing that I can talk about. But I couldn't find a power that would complement him. And since it's a romance, I wanted something that had potential. Like there's a fight that happens. It needed potential there. It needed to be steamy in the bedroom. And I'm sitting there and one of my friends is just like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, great. Now I have to co-author a book.
No, you don't. Dan does that to me all the time. He's developmentally edits my stuff, and he'll figure out how to unravel a plot snarl. And I'll be like, well, why don't you just write the book then?
And I wrote everything up to that point and kind of around that point.
Yeah.
And what I realized is the story can only be 4,000 to 8,000 words, and I'm at 3,000 right now, and I just got to the action. So, pulling out the unnecessary threads is definitely something that we kind of don't need to do when you can write 140,000 words.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I will be able to get everything but the steamy part done tonight. I'm actually saving the steamy part. I'm going to dictate it.
Oh my gosh. Let me know if that works better, because I would be too self-conscious for that.
Just going down the interstate at 65, getting my groove on.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Maybe getting out of your way, like getting out of your head about it. Like I bet that would work.
So that's been my big to-do. And then my mother is actually my audiobook proofer, and she's been like trying to sell her house, and so she's working on it in her free time. And so I've been helping her by doing all the flashback chapters. So and there's just moments when I hit pause and I'm like, oh, it's so good.
Oh, I love that feeling.
And like, I love some of the lines I wrote in this book. Like, there are definitely some quotables, but to hear the narrator, who is the voice of these characters, it just makes me really happy. So,
oh, I can't wait to listen to it.
A lot of good work happening.
Good.
It's so much going on that it needs to mellow out.
Yes, it is. We need a lull.
Yeah, I definitely think a lull. And at the rate we're going, there's going to be a quarantine. So who knows?
Oh, I don't want to think about that right now. Well, but you know what? Our listens might go up because people won't have anything to do.
I love how
you're
you just
listening to this while you're like stuck in your house. Feel better soon. I hope you can go outside soon.
Okay, I teased her about the abs, but Trish just tried to monetize a pandemic. So
no, I did not. Come on.
Okay, so what have you been doing for the past week or two?
Besides what you just accused me of.
We write supervillains. It's in our blood. It's
kind of instinctual. I hate to say it, but I mean, there are times I'm like, wow, that would make a really gruesome way to kill somebody. I got to write that down. Oh, speaking of gruesome ways to kill somebody. So, honestly, I wasn't thinking about this till I just said that. Deanna and I saw Knives Out last night.
Oh, how'd you like it?
Oh my God, that is so good. It is so much fun.
So
Rian Johnson is like, mwah, like kudos, man. It was beautiful.
so I watched it and I paused in the middle and went to bed.
Oh my God,
It
no.
it wasn't that it was bad. Like everything about it is so good. Like, and I
It,
do mean everything. It just, once I got enough of the plot that I wanted was
um,
done. And so I was like, "Oh man, there's another hour and 15 minutes."
did you
So
even see Chris Evans in it though? He's
um
so good.
he I only saw him for the early cameo. I didn't even
Oh,
realize he came back. So
oh my God, he does. And the scene where they're about to read the will, I was like, oh my God, Captain America who? Like basically he was like, I think I'm gonna do something completely opposite.
and the best part is there's a sequel
Oh my
that's going
God,
to
really?
happen,
That's so good.
except it's only Daniel Craig's character.
Okay. I loved him. He
Yeah.
had this Columbo, like Angela Lansbury combo vibe. I don't know how to describe it. It was really interesting.
The accent. Oh my god, that took me so long to get over.
I
That
loved
was
it so much.
but the best part was I didn't think like the ending. I was like, okay, okay, like it's really well written and well put
Yeah.
together. His final clue, I was like, damn,
I
okay.
know, right? I love Rian Johnson. I know this might be a very unpopular opinion, but he directed my favorite of the newest three Star Wars films. The Last Jedi is my absolute favorite. I love
Okay.
that one. And I know I might be in the minority of viewers and listeners with that, but so he wrote and directed Knives Out, and it was so fun. I really loved it. Just something totally different. Anyway, I mean that wasn't what I was going to talk about, but like brutal ways to die, kind of just like reminded me of that. Um, anyway, well, I actually have a new release coming up in a couple weeks, so it's been on
Woo.
pre-order for a while, and I did a post reminding some authors, hey, you promised to share it, and the next thing I know, and it's in a group of like mixed like authors and readers both, so there's all kinds of different people in this very large urban fantasy Facebook group. The next thing I know, I'm looking at my books on Amazon just to check, make sure everything is good, like as you do. And I have an orange tag for the number one new release on
Woo.
my book for African American science fiction. And I was like, am I looking at this right? This isn't the cold. This is like, I'm not hallucinating. So it was pretty cool. It's like 2 weeks before it actually releases. So I'm pretty
And
excited about it.
and for those who are curious, you can go pick up Fahrenheit's Ghost now.
You can. Actually, you can get it now in paperback if you like just can't wait to read it. Or you can pre-order the ebook if
Hey,
you want. For
there you
99
go.
cents. 99 cents right now. So awesome.
Okay, so pop culture history. What do we
Pop
got?
culture history. We got some good ones this month. So, 1972, in February, Misty Knight makes her premiere in Marvel Team Ups #1. Now, the thing that's interesting about Misty Knight is her premiere technically, she's not named. She's kind of a pseudo background character on a bus. And then the next issue, you find out this woman on the bus is a character in the story. But technically, she is introduced in Marvel Team Ups #1. So I thought that was really interesting. And she's, for all that she is a black exploitation inspired character, she has had a lot of staying power.
My my saddest thing about the shows being canceled on Netflix is that we won't get the Misty Knight team up we deserve.
Yes, the Daughters of the Dragon.
Yeah,
That one episode in the last season of Iron Fist
it
where
was
it's
close.
Colleen. It was close. It was Colleen and Misty in the bar. I was like, dear God, please tell me this is a backdoor pilot for the Daughters of the Dragon. And honestly, Disney, I don't know who's running their streaming service over there, but they were like so shocked that a bunch of people unsubscribed the day after the Mandalorian's last episode premiered. And I'm like, are you people kidding me right now? Do you not know how this works? If they were smart, they would greenlight a Daughters of the Dragon show for the streaming service. But there you have it. That's just my 2 cents. Okay, moving right along. In 1985, Robotech premiered in U.S. syndication. So I didn't watch Robotech. I was a Voltron girl.
I was a Voltron guy.
Yeah, but my husband, God bless him, this was probably 6 or 7 years ago. A Robotech ended up being on Netflix, and he's like, "Oh, I really want to show this to you." So he puts it on, and I'm like, "Hmm, it's okay, all right." Well, I'm lost. He's like, "Well, no, you see this, and it's very like." They ended up Robotech. I think it predates Voltron in syndication by a skosh in the
Yeah.
United States. So it really was the first kind of major, I think, the first major anime import um, to come over, and it has spawned comic books, tons of merchandise. There is fanfic. I mean, that you could read till the day you die about Robotech. It's huge. So this month in 1985 is when it first premiered in the United States.
Okay, go to the last one. This is the one I'm
You
excited for.
you should see, if you're not watching him, he's like, hee.
It's way too
Okay, so
excited.
1998, Titanic became the first film to gross over $1 billion worldwide.
This just is so funny now.
It really is. It
I
really.
remember my girlfriend at the time made me go see it like 3 times. I don't understand why they both couldn't fit on the raft. Like
Nobody
just
does.
the the best thing to come out of that, like there were some good moments. I was okay with the movie.
Yeah.
But HBO is part of the joint HBO commercial was it just showed all the emotional scenes from Titanic and I was like in a minute and a half to the Enya soundtrack we got everything that was worth watching.
Pretty much.
It's just funny. $1 billion. 1 billion.
1 billion.
Big
Nowadays it's
deal.
quaint, quaint. Like Avengers made that in what? Like a
And
weekend.
and I just appreciate that it is a rare time that we can say superheroes won over romance.
Yep. It's very
We'll
rare.
take our victories where we
Yeah,
get them.
we will. All right. Well, Jeremy, are you ready to geek out?
I am always ready to geek out.
All right. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first? Mine's a little
Uh,
weird.
okay, I'll go first because
Okay.
mine's actually superheroes for
It is
once. Well,
superheroes. It's a good segue. It is.
so
I think it is. Okay.
I have been on a pursuit to. I've been Marvel and DC'd out for a while when it comes to TV shows. The between Agents of Shields, Arrow, and Runaways. Runaways is one of my favorites.
Hmm.
It became a lot of action adventure, and it just it almost started to bleed into the same genre of oh no, there's a supervillain, and just okay,
It's
like
so predictable. Yeah.
it's a TV show. We know it has to end with the hero winning. So how are we getting there?
Hmm.
So Netflix came out with a show called "I Am Not Okay with This,"
I've heard
and
such good things about that.
so it is a weird show. It is so the downside to it is it's half-hour episodes, which okay, it was kind of nice to speed through it.
Hmm.
It's I think 10 episodes long, and it
Oh.
is 100% the mid-season finale because you get to know the character over the course of the season. You get to um, uh, experience the most awkward moments of teenagerdom, and just when it's about to get super, that's credits. What
Oh. Oh my
I'm
God.
so it's by the creators of Stranger Things. So it's written. It was created by them. I don't know who directed it, but
So they're
um,
show running it. They're show running it
yeah.
essentially.
So and here's the thing: take the movie Booksmart, which is a
Okay.
quirky, odd teen film
Yeah.
about quirky, odd teens. Take Elle from Stranger Things and drop her into that movie.
Oh my God.
We're done. There is, unfortunately, I really liked it, but there's not one original thing about it. It is truly, uh, and you'll know within seconds, it's a girl with telekinetic powers. Oh, because we didn't see that in Stranger Things.
But
And
I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
no, so the powers really are a parable to her finding herself as an awkward teen.
Oh, interesting.
And so the powers run parallel to her discovering her personal identity. And it's good. There's a lot of unfinished business with her father and
Mm.
trying to fit in and peer pressure, and it's really quick. I didn't realize it, but I binged it in a day. So
Oh my
um,
God.
yeah,
All right.
it's like 3.5 hours. So maybe it's only
Oh,
7 or 8 episodes. Um,
that's not bad.
so if you're a fan of Stranger Things, I would highly recommend it. If you hated Stranger Things, then go elsewhere because you'll see their fingers all over this one.
Okay. That's awesome. Actually, I'm gonna have to, Dan and I, it's on our list. We have the two kids. We're just so tired at the end of the night. We're like, I can't watch anything new.
It's it is so not kid friendly.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think it was just from the preview.
The literally the opening is her covered in blood running through the street. And you're
Oh my
like,
God.
"Oh, so we're not pulling any punches."
Yeah, so we're here now. Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely a fun fast watch, and it makes you uncomfortable because oh god, we were all that teenager.
Yeah, I felt that way about it only had one season, which I'm really sad about, but Everything Sucks.
Yeah, it
It was so my kind of, it was early like 90s, and I'm like, oh my God, that's me.
and I feel it has the same awkwardness as that. So
Okay.
you'll definitely see some parallels. Like Netflix is looking for a very particular type of movie right now
They
or
are. It
series.
works for them. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So what do you have for geeking out this week?
So this is a little different. I have a feeling I'm gonna have the geek outs that are like kind of out there and like just generally different, but I'm cool with that. So if you're listening to this or watching this and you're just like wanting a little more woo woo in your life,
Okay.
then
First, let's elaborate on the woo woo.
woo woo. Okay, so just a quick background. I was raised in a very conservative Christian home, and as an adult, like, I've been wanting to bring more, just more of a goddess vibe, for lack of a better way of saying it, into my spiritual life. So I started because it was the only place I could figure out to start. I started with Wicca this last fall, and it's not, I don't think it's really for me, but it did lead me down this path of exploring crystals and astrology and tarot cards and oracle cards. And so that's woo. They call it woo. And I love that. I love it. And so I was getting my hair cut, and the young woman that cuts my hair was like, oh, she's into the same thing. We were both like we geek out about that when I get my hair cut. She's like, oh, have you heard Glow Girl? And I was like, no. I was like, you mean the TV show? And she's like, no, no, no. So it's a podcast. It's two Midwest moms. And to be clear, like, I love podcasts. Whenever I'm learning something new, I would go hunting for them. And all the Wiccan podcasts I found, the women's voices were very airy, and I just found myself falling asleep. I was like, okay, I can't, like, I need something else. These women, they're Midwestern. One of them drops F-bombs every other word. She talks about things that are very inappropriate. Do not listen to this podcast with your children anywhere around unless you want them to learn what a taint is very early in their lives. Um, they're just, they are so real and energetic, and it's like having coffee or cocktails with your girlfriends and talking about crystals. And they're constantly like, what crystal do you have in your bra today? And I don't know why they keep them in their bras. I haven't figured that out yet. But so they're just very real and down to earth. Even though they're talking about this woo woo kind of stuff, they're very down to earth and real. And like one of them, I believe she's on antidepressants, and she talks a lot about her ADHD, which is just so refreshingly open and honest. I really love that. And so what they do is they talk about, like, so they'll go over the astrological charts or major events for the week and tell you kind of what that means and how they're preparing for those things. Like, for instance, Mercury retrograde, which we're in right now. They're like, don't be scared, be prepared, and here's how. And um, they will then have guests on, and sometimes the guests will talk about tarot cards or astrology, or it's the kind of thing where if you've been practicing this for years you'll get something out of it, but if you're a newbie like me, it's really informative, and it's also just very like inspiring. And I've been finding it from a spiritual perspective kind of nourishing, where it's like, oh, I never thought about it from that perspective. So it's called the Glow Girl podcast, and they have like, it's part of a network, the Girl Productions, I think, is what it is, and they have like 3 or 4 different podcasts. But
So I went to school in Salem, Massachusetts.
oh
So,
my goodness,
um, so
wow,
I always,
oh, that's awesome.
when in Salem, do as the witches do.
Yeah, so around Samhain, it's like packed with
It
pagan tourists.
it's not even the pagan tourists. Like apparently, the broadcast goes out, go away, and all the locals board themselves up. It's like Mardi Gras for locals. Um, it winds up being over 100,000 people in
Oh my God.
one city block.
Oh my God, that is insane.
Salem is really small in the historic district, so it sucked to go to work that day.
I bet it did. I bet it did. There's another podcast, The Fat Feminist Witch, that I don't listen to her as regularly as Glow Girl, but she talks about she was doing a couple of episodes on pagan tourism, and she talked about going to Salem during Samhain and how she was like, I was so disappointed.
It
She's like, it wasn't anything like I thought it would be.
it without beads being thrown from windows, it is just a much smaller version of that.
Yeah.
It's what zombies would look like as they just rotate around one city block.
That is really sad. She recommended going the week after. Like,
Yeah, it,
oh,
so when the boyfriend came to visit, we went the week after. Nobody,
yeah,
nobody anywhere,
cleared out.
and it was beautiful. We got into every pub, every shop,
Oh,
piece of cake.
I do want to go to Salem very much, even if though I'm not like a practicing Wiccan or witch. But yeah, it's called the Glow Girl Podcast. I'll link to it in the show notes. And I love it. I'm listening to the backlist, and I've actually gotten a couple books. I've gotten another podcast recommendation. It's called Tarot Bite, and it's this woman who's been practicing tarot cards for 30 years,
I just
and
love the
she does.
name.
I know, right? It's so good. And they're basically 20-minute podcast episodes that share very beginner tips about how to start a tarot practice and what you need to know. And it's really cool. Like, I don't know, I'm getting a lot out of it. So if you're listening to this and you're just really curious, check out the Glow Girl podcast. You can find it iTunes, Spotify, everywhere.
Okay, so ready for the deep dive?
I am. We have a really interesting one this week.
So this week, what we're going to talk about is iconic superheroes, and we're going to go just a little bit further than that. We're going to talk about the difference in genders with iconic superheroes. We originally were just going to do iconic superheroes, and what makes an iconic superhero, and we realized when we were doing it that there's some weird discrepancies, and we decided we need to talk about that.
Yeah, we do.
So, some of this is going to be coming from comic books, some of it's going to be coming from pop culture, some of it's going to be coming from movies. So, beware, we are doing a kind of a broad canon,
Yeah.
non-canon thing.
And if you
Um,
have questions, just leave them comments, email us, go to the Facebook group and drop a question to us, and we'll be happy to go a little deeper as well.
so, the first two that we're going to bring up is, well, Batman and Superman. Not planned at all.
Not at all. We didn't even think this through.
Okay, so Superman, I'm going to argue, is the most iconic superhero alive today, ever, period. End of story.
Yeah.
And so the big question is, other than the fact that they have been around forever, what are a couple of the things that make them so iconic that we as a society or we as people just go to them?
Hmm.
And the first one for Superman is that, and I'm not a Superman fan, but I will 100% stand behind this. He is a beacon of hope, and more than that, he is the best of what humanity has to offer in a bigger picture.
I would agree with that. I'll be honest, I don't read a lot of Superman. I don't read any Superman comics, and I find him so uninteresting, with the exception of Christopher Reeve in the 1970s. I think it was 1978 was the movie. I don't remember, but with that one exception, because I feel like Christopher Reeve humanized him in a way that I hadn't seen, and I don't think we have seen until maybe Brandon Routh. Sorry, everybody else that played Superman, but it brought him kind of down to earth. I mean, because he is this otherworldly, godlike figure, if you think about it. But I do believe that he is, for all that his story is a real immigrant story, if you want to think about it, a white immigrant story. Um, he does represent the best of what humanity could be. He's always that example of what we hope we will be somehow.
And the biggest thing is, like you said, he's kind of a godlike figure. So his struggles from villains are really hard
Yeah.
because it just turns into power level, power level, power level, power level,
Hmm.
and at the end of the day, we know that ultimately he's pretty much always going to win.
Yeah.
Um,
And with
but
the exception of red kryptonite being thrown into the mix, you can't really do a personal struggle because he's been set up as uncorruptible, essentially.
yeah, the Boy Scout thing is uh, he as far as his morality compass, him and Cyclops from the X-Men, that is my key reason for not liking them.
Oh
Um,
my God, I'm so glad to hear you say that about Cyclops. I could never stand him. Seriously, Jean, Wolverine, just pick
anyone.
Wolverine. Anybody, that's true. I don't care, just not Cyclops.
So because his struggle can't come from villains, because we know ultimately he's going to win, it always comes down to moral dilemmas are really his supervillain.
Yeah,
Am I
agreed.
going to save Lois, or am I going to save the bus of children? And
Exactly.
when he gets put into these moral dilemmas, now we have a very black and white figure who only sees good or evil,
Hmm.
um, right and wrong, and now there is no right answer. And I think that's where um, we as people feel that there's never a right answer. So where are we willing to compromise? And it's nice to see that Superman generally finds a way to not compromise.
Yeah, it gives us hope that we can do that, even though I think we all know deep down that that's not really how life works.
I
Which, I mean, it's honestly the perfect segue into the other hero that he is most often paired with, and that is Batman. Because I do think Batman lives in that gray in between.
Yes. But and I what I like about Batman is whereas Superman's world is black and white, Batman's is generally um, gray in the middle, but his extremes are pulled in a little bit. So
Hmm.
we don't ever have the expectation that Batman is ever going to be perfectly good, nor do we think that he's
Right.
going to be perfectly evil. Um, and I think that that's something that we relate to because I don't think many people can say like I am sainthood good or I'm really a supervillain just waiting to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we all relate with that struggle of this person did something really bad, and even though I know it's not right, I'd really love to punch their face in. And
And
Batman struggles with that. He lives within that struggle.
um and I think another major piece to it is none of us can be Superman. We know it. He's an
Yeah.
alien. We can hope to have his spirit. Batman on the other hand, if we won the lottery, we could all be Batman.
It's the truth. Yeah, exactly.
And so I think by not having him have a power, he he becomes someone that we can aspire to be, and not
Yes.
for moral reasons, because you know, not.
Yeah, that's
But
if
we all
somebody
want the
says that,
belt.
that's a problem. Yeah, we all want the belt. We all want, I don't know. I kind of want the Batcave. I've always loved the Batcave.
I really just want a collection of my enemies' trinkets and giant glass jars around my house.
Is that too much to ask?
Yeah,
And
I
then,
mean,
an English butler to dust them for you. I really
yes,
do genuinely
must
feel sorry for Alfred.
must be English.
Must be English and possibly no martial arts because that's just
They all
Debbie.
do.
They all do.
And the other thing, and the thing that we were talking about that combines the two of them is they both are orphans of different situations, but a lot of their story is about finding their place with their family, and
Mm,
neither of them. It's a struggle, and it never
yeah,
quite rectifies itself.
they're never exactly um, comfortable. And I do think, Superman is adopted by this ideal, like idyllic farm, Midwest, beautiful couple. Whereas Batman, for all that we all love Alfred, I mean, he is a lonely orphan boy who ends up. We talk about the Bat family. That's a great example of somebody who had this tragedy and had their family ripped apart, ripped away from them. They then create a found family of like-minded individuals, and
And
for all that it is very dysfunctional, it's still a found family.
And I constantly wonder, has anyone else in that Bat family noticed that every time Batman starts to get happy or mellow, someone dies to make him angry again?
I would just leave town, honestly.
Yeah,
Like
like
just go.
Nightwing, you were onto something.
Yeah, save yourselves, all of you. All right, who's
Uh,
our next pairing?
okay, so the next pairing is actually Marvel's equivalent, and we decided to go with Wolverine and Deadpool. Um,
And people are like,
because
what?
Uh, yeah, we thought long and hard. I mean, there are a lot of other pairings, but there's something weird about this one. Whereas Batman and Superman have this legacy behind them, Wolverine also has this very lengthy history.
Hmm.
However, Deadpool comes around in 1992, and he has grown in status uh, to the point where I'm gonna say he rivals Wolverine,
Yeah.
um, and it's funny because we were talking earlier about how Batman and Superman do not make a good buddy cop comedy.
No, at
Wolverine
all.
and Deadpool, that's one we would all watch.
Yes. And in fact, everybody wanted Hugh Jackman to make a cameo as Wolverine in the Deadpool movies, and that just was
I,
not going to happen.
and you know what? I didn't think about this before. Deadpool is Wolverine's petulant son.
Yeah, or like the really, yeah,
It,
probably, I would imagine. Yeah, that actually works.
so Wolverine, for all intents and purposes, you mean the Marvel Batman.
Yes.
Um, he has this dark side that's constantly following him, this rage that he always refers to, or uh, what is it he actually calls it? Oh, the Berserker rage. Um,
Does he really? I didn't know that.
yeah, it's the Berserker. And it's where his humanity just falls away and he just becomes pure animal. And we, every time this happens, we always want to see him regain his humanity.
Hmm.
And so that's a big part of his storyline is that he doesn't identify himself as being kind of a normal human most of the time.
Yeah.
And we kind of, secretly hope that he will find the thing that somehow magically fixes him, aka Jean Grey.
I was just thinking that, like the love of a good woman, Jean Grey. Jean Grey!
Yeah, seriously.
I ship
Though,
that.
though every woman he loves just gets stabbed. So
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. We could have a whole podcast about that issue.
next week's podcast, the dead women of Wolverine's life,
We're just
a
comics in
10-part
general.
series.
Yeah, the dead women of comics.
Um, and so the other thing that we kind of really like about Wolverine, and this is something I really do like about him, I'm also not a huge Wolverine fan outside of his role within the X-Men. Um, he is an extremely intense emotional person, and
Hmm.
not just the animal side. Like, I love a good Wolverine sex scene because he is super passionate. He is
Yeah.
just he's the man you want to bring it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's an animalistic. I've always loved kind of the animalistic quality, and that's going to sound really bad, but I really have loved that about him. And my first exposure to Wolverine was the cartoon. And I
Mm.
always loved him. I loved how snarly and like just grouchy he was with everybody.
And
It spoke to me of somebody who was really has this tender heart that he's just buried under piles of scars and wounds, and he doesn't want to get close to anybody.
and I think where Batman, if we had enough money, we could have the gadgets and be a sleuth.
Hmm.
Uh, I think Wolverine, his iconic status is he is the man that women want to be with, and he is the man that men want to be with.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I feel he would be many comic geeks hall pass.
yes, I would agree. Well, but I think Deadpool also would qualify as that
Okay,
for
so
some.
uh, Deadpool. Are we going to be swearing? Like,
Yeah,
I
go. I mean,
okay.
why not? Yeah,
We
I
I
mentioned a taint in
oh
my
that is
geek
true.
out, so
That's
we're
true.
already,
Okay, Deadpool is who you want to be in the office place. He has zero fucks to give,
yeah.
and every time he does something stupid and outlandish, you just think, man, I wish I had the balls to say that.
Yes, exactly. And be totally fine with the repercussions because he
Yeah,
is. He's like,
and
whatever. I don't even care right now.
and horrible things happen to him all the time, and you just
Yeah.
think, man, I wish I could do that and get away with it.
Yep. Pretty much.
Um, and I think the fact that he can be extremely outlandish really serves him in this because most he has a lot of like deep qualities. I will give him that.
Hmm.
But the Deadpool I love is the Merc with a mouth. I love the snark. I love
Yeah.
the. Did you really just say that out loud? Like, there are moments when reading the comic. The last long series I read with him was the X Force Wetworks series,
Oh,
and
okay.
it has him, Archangel, Psylocke, and Wolverine in it, and Phantom X, who no one cares about. Um, just sorry.
Just bad.
But the best part is there's like 3 comics go by, and Wolverine is walking around with a decapitated Deadpool, holding his head up, and the head it won't quit. The head
Yeah.
is still going. It's still threatening to kill people. It's when I grow my body back, you'll. It was, you know
So,
what, that bravado.
yeah. Well, and here's how he's kind of like Superman. He's virtually indestructible. Seriously. And it's ridiculous on in the movies in particular. It is ridiculous how indestructible he is, honestly. It almost eschews my ability to suspend my disbelief. So in that respect, he is so much like Superman, where the sense of we know there's no threat here for him, and yet in the movies, I was still like kind of on the edge of my seat with those action sequences because I mean, I basically just wanted to know how it was going to turn out and what body parts he was going to lose. Like
And
that's what I wanted to know.
and Superman, you want to see him win. Deadpool, you want to see how he wins.
Exactly, exactly. Because
I
it's never easy. It's never
no,
easy or straightforward. It's the weirdest stuff.
and he is kind of the messy representation of everyone's life. And
Yeah,
if you were
exactly.
surrounded by a dozen ninjas and you knew you were about to get poked through the eye, like you want some good one-liners as you go down.
Yeah. And the other thing, the last thing I will say about Deadpool is he wears his scars with pride.
Yes.
Which I think is really his it's important for those that have physical scarring that usually only see themselves represented as villains, which I suppose you could make a case for Deadpool being an anti-hero, but at least there's a hero aspect in there.
Yeah.
And it's also important, I think, for people that have really, I mean, big internal scars, that Deadpool wears those scars, at least in some of the comic iterations I've seen. In the movies, not so much, but um, he wears them proudly, and he wears them like, yeah, screw you. This is how I look. If you don't like it, you don't have to look at me, kind of a thing.
Zero fucks.
Zero.
Okay, so our last team up is the one that kind of caused a little bit of a kerfluffle because we wanted to have some female superheroes who are extremely iconic. And what we realized is we took Wonder Woman out of the mix just because,
I just feel like that's been done.
and Wonder Woman 1984 is coming out, and of course we're going to have to talk about that then.
Yeah, we're waiting.
So we skipped her. Um, but then we started looking at other women superheroes, and what we realized was, oh, ah, mm. And it
There are
just
some great ones, but to call them icons, for them to qualify as iconic, that was the sticking point, I think, for us.
and so we scraped and we looked around, and there were some good candidates. Like Squirrel Girl is probably a new a new icon waiting to happen.
Yeah.
We
I would say
have
Ironheart as well.
Ironheart.
The Unstoppable Wasp. Those are some good candidates.
So we do have some that are starting to pop up, but there's a lot that it's really hard to look at. Like I'm sorry, but like Black Widow, um, sorry, Jean Grey. Okay, I'll give you Jean Grey, but
But again, she's been done to death, kind
yeah,
of a thing. And although Black Widow did lead the Avengers, I think that is kind of cool, but icon status, I'm not really sure she qualifies as icon
yeah.
status. I don't
So
know.
and that's what we found is there were some that came close, or maybe, or they're on the verge. So we decided to go with the two heavy hitters of Marvel, and really pull out for Storm and Miss Marvel.
The Carol Danvers, Ms. Marvel, not
Yes,
Kamala Khan.
who also is on, I think, her path there.
Yeah.
Um, so Storm is kind of the easy one because she gets icon status for a couple really fast reasons. She is black. I'm
She's a
not,
she's a black woman. She's a black woman. Yeah.
yeah. And so when you try to think of black superheroes, and I promise you, I'm sorry, white people, you're all being thrown under the bus. If you ask any white geek, oh, name a black superhero, I'm willing to bet money that Storm is in the top three
Yeah.
for
Easily.
everyone.
Easily.
Um,
In fact, one of the articles we shared in our show notes last month was some of the best black superheroes who are not Storm. And it's
Literally
great.
are
It's
not Storm.
are not Storm. And I think, well, and I don't think we should, we're not trying, I should say, we're not trying to downplay the importance of a black woman from a third world country having such prominence. That is important. That was, nobody had done that before she came on the scene. Nobody. And the fact that she is seen as a complete equal with all of her teammates, um, her race is never really mentioned. It's never brought up, which is both a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it can imagine a more post-racial world where that is just it's a fact of a part of who you are, but it does not determine your worth. Um, First prominent African American X-Man, female hero, team leader. I mean, she's an icon for a reason.
What we are saying though is she carries the burden of all black superheroes because
Yeah,
everyone relies on that as their one. And there are
yeah.
so many.
Black women in particular.
The great thing about her is she had a really nifty story woven into the X-Men, kind of a retcon of how she was discovered by Charles Xavier much before she becomes part of the team. And that piece, I think, helped weave her into the tapestry of the X-Men, where at the time she joined the team at the same time as Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Banshee.
Hmm.
I'm missing somebody.
Um, Angel was already there. You said Nightcrawler, right?
Yeah, it was.
She was the only woman, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah, because all the others went and died. But she had this really cool history with Charles Xavier already, and at this point, those other X-Men, they eventually do get a pretty bulky backstory, but
Mm-hmm.
at this point, she kind of has some unique qualities built into her right away. So that I think helped uh, put her into a more, we are eventually going to elevate your status down the
Yeah.
road. Um,
Well, and she represents, so her storylines, it's interesting. I haven't really read very many X-Men comics. I think Dark Phoenix Saga and Days of Future Past are the only two that I have read several times. Um, but I've read a ton, and Jeremy, you and I were talking about this before the show. I have read a literal shit ton of pop culture um, deep dives and books and things like that. And if it's about superheroes, Storm always comes up, especially female heroes. And for her, she really represents within the X-Men, she represents um, the mother figure type with Kitty Pryde and her leadership of the X-Men. You could say that she has that maternal kind of vibe going on, but without venturing into trope territory. She really
mm-hmm,
does avoid the big three black female tropes of, you know, the genderless mammy and the siren, like the hypersexualized one, or the super angry black woman. She skirts those entirely, and she ends up fulfilling these roles that, especially at the time she was brought onto the scene, we hadn't seen black women fulfill before.
and I think the thing that I mean, she was a great character from the beginning for me, and then the thing that really solidified for me her as moving into icon status was when she lost her powers. You're an X-Men. Your powers are actually why you are here. Like that is
Hmm.
the only thing on the admission ticket. And she loses them and you think, ugh, gone. And not only does she stay, but she manages to take on Cyclops, beat
Hmm.
him without powers,
Yep.
and she assumes the mantle of leader as a human.
Yeah.
And
And
all the
nobody
while,
questions it.
no one questions it. And all the while this is happening, she is having this massive internal struggle about who am I when the thing that defined me is taken away.
Yeah.
And she had emotion, she had internal story, external story, she had action, she had drama. Um, she when Chris Claremont came on to scene, he was like, I know she's gonna get used all over the place.
Oh yeah. Chris Claremont was great for the women, the women he wrote in general. And actually, if you don't have anything else to say about Storm, that is a great segue to Ms. Marvel,
Yeah,
because Claremont. So Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers. Let's just a quick rundown of her. She was um, when the original Captain Marvel, Marvel, came on the scene. She was his friend, and she they kind of had like a pseudo romance where she kind of had a crush on him, but that didn't last very long. And 1970s hit, and the comics getting a lot of pressure, like to have feminist characters. So what they decided to do is they take Carol Danvers and they put her as the J. Jonah Jameson hires her to edit Woman magazine, and she's very much it's a ham-fisted attempt at like having a Gloria Steinem kind of character without it being Gloria Steinem and without being like super feminist but being feminist. And she ends up having a personality disorder, so she passes out, loses her memory, and that's when her superpowered persona Ms. Marvel takes over. And that split personality happened for a while until Chris Claremont took over the title. And a lot of the problems with how Ms. Marvel was created and introduced, he took care of those. He very quickly got rid of the split personality. He very quickly got rid of this idea that her superhero persona is her masculine persona and her other persona is her feminine one. He just combined them beautifully. So that's a little bit of background about Carol Danvers as Ms. Marvel. Um, she has been many things. She has gone through many iterations. She was Warbird when she did not have her powers. She was binary when I believe she got powers from a binary star after Rogue took her original powers.
yeah, something like that.
She's been depowered several times. She has been, and trigger warning for sexual assault, really quickly. If you are sensitive to that, just fast forward. Um, she was raped by a super cosmic being, impregnated and kidnapped and brainwashed with the full blessing of the Avengers. And then when she came back, she was like, screw all you guys. You let that happen to me. She's been through the ringer as a character, quite honestly.
And I think that that's one of the things that we were talking about is the men that are iconic are um, Wolverine loses his skeleton, Superman loses his powers. I'm sure Batman goes broke in a comic.
He
And
does, yeah. Loses his fortune.
Deadpool, I don't really know what you could do to Deadpool to make him fall from grace. I think he is the epitome of fallen from grace.
He's the epitome, again, no more fucks to give. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything you could really take away from him.
And so all these men, they fall from a really high perch to the status quo, and then they have to get back to their godly status. Whereas the women who are seeming to make this icon status are at the status quo, knocked way down, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, abused all the way down. Even Storm, she has her powers taken away by a man who is trying to do her right. Um,
Oh my
and
God.
yeah, it's Forge, who we love as a character. So in the name of love, men apparently do stupid things.
Yeah.
And those women clawed their way back to the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't stop there. They kept going. And now I think one of the reasons that I absolutely loved Chris Claremont's X-Men The End, if you are a fan, go watch the last episode. Um, Storm and Wolverine have a thing, and
Oh,
it should happen. I mean, it
wow. I
should.
never thought about that.
Oh
Huh.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the women really, they are equal status,
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the things that makes them so amazing.
it is. And they have, um, I had a thought, okay, honestly, this is me without my afternoon coffee. Um, the thing is about the men getting knocked down is it's always in the service of an opportunity for them to grow as a person. Like it's an internal growth for them. They're allowed to recover. They're allowed, usually within a few issues, they get those powers back. With the women, on the other hand, it usually takes a really long time, and the manner in which their powers or their agency was taken away is incredibly traumatic. It's oftentimes assault, torture, murder, then they're brought back to life. I mean, these are things that are they're really brutal, that are done more often to the female characters than the male characters. And then usually, like in the sense of Carol Danvers, she as binary, she's super super powerful, but it's essentially the same power set and
Mm.
level as when she was Ms. Marvel. So
And in her case, she gets beaten up, and when she's at her lowest, we don't get to experience her comeback. She gets written off until an author decides, oh, she's a great one to bring back.
exactly.
Storm, and this is one of the things that Storm, I mean, she has earned her place. We watch her climb back up, and almost all of it is on page, which I think is a really big deal.
Yeah. So I really wanted to talk more about this, but
It's that
there's a
time.
it's that time, and there's a delivery truck outside delivering my new mattress. So they're gonna be banging on my door in a minute.
Well
Real life
then.
stuff comes into our conversations.
Okay, so easy question of the week.
All right.
Let's take the six out of the equation.
All
Who do
right.
you feel is one of the most iconic characters in comics? Period.
Yeah.
DC, Marvel, Image. Ooh, ooh, there were some good Marvel Image ones that I could have thought of.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
So
Or any indie
any,
comics if you have
yeah.
indie ones.
And when you send us a message, make sure to tag the author too, because we love looking up more about indie authors. So,
Absolutely.
and I think that's it for the week.
I think it is. And if you have any, also, I just want to open it up. If you have things that you'd like to hear us deep dive about, let us know. We are open to those suggestions. This is Women's History Month. We would love to do some great deep dives on women heroes or just anybody. So leave us a comment. And thank you for listening, everybody. To stay up to date with the Geekorama podcast, you can watch our videos on YouTube or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. And if you enjoyed the show, leave us a review or hit the thumbs up button. New episodes are released on Thursdays for podcast listeners and YouTube fans.